Let me tell you, there's a lot of controversy happening in the Bob Dylan community right now.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, because of the
So,
AI thing?
so you're aware of the AI thing?
I read a little bit. I don't know that much about it. I just kind of saw it and I was like, all right, Bob.
Yeah. So for the last like 6 months, maybe like he's occasionally been posting like on his official Instagram these like very like ChatGPT generated infographic posters with like an excerpt from this book which doesn't exist, and people have been like, Bob, he's 85, he's just playing around with AI, I guess. And some people are like, no, he's writing a book, can't you tell? It's like, no, that's AI generated. But yeah, so recently apparently he has a fucking Patreon now where for $5 you can listen to an AI generated lecture of historical, deceased figures talk about, I don't know, like historical testimony. It's like Aaron Burr on like duels or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, Buffalo Bill Cody on the Wild West. It's like it's very Bob, but also awful because it's. Look, I learned a long time ago not to like idolize anyone, not to put anyone on a pedestal. So that way, I'm not disappointed in Bob because I
Yeah.
just figure he's a fallible human being and he makes mistakes, and this is definitely a mistake. But a lot of people are losing their fucking minds on this. You know what? Maybe not is particularly controversial this week though.
Floridays?
Is Jimmy? Question mark.
Jimmy.
Away again. Wasting away again, away again. Wasting away again. And Margarita the bed. It's my own damn fault.
You did some research to find an alternative theory for this album, and I have my own theory, which is that Jimmy has driven us both insane.
Oh, well, I mean that's definitely true, but
Well, welcome everybody to what's this fucking podcast called? This
this
choreography wasting
choreography.
away 2026.
Yeah.
I'm Tom.
I'm Kyle. We're talking about Floridays this week. We're all the way up into 1986. The last Mustache
This
album.
Yeah, the mustache, end of an era. The mustache goes away after this album. He shaves it off, never to be seen again. Get it out of here,
Yeah.
folks. We're gonna miss it. There's a lot to discuss with this album. I think this album's intensely interesting.
It-
Before we get into it, we should just start. Kyle, what have you been listening to this week that wasn't recorded by Jimmy?
oh, so after our tangent last week about world music, I went and listened to Paul Simon's Graceland,
Okay.
which I'm not actually a huge fan of Paul Simon in general. The album's okay, but it did lead me down a rabbit hole. I ended up listening to a lot of South African jazz, specifically by a pianist by the name of Nduduzo Makatini, and I listened to his latest album, which came out in 2024, called Unomku Bulwane, I think is how you pronounce it. It's really interesting. He sings in Zulu, so there's some clicks in there and everything, which I think is actually kind of cool for jazz to
Yeah,
have a language that is like has like clicking consonants. He's a pretty good pianist, and there's a lot of like Western like bop in there as well. But then there's a lot of like Zulu drumming and rhythm and chanting and things like that. And then of course he's singing in Zulu, and it's really nice to hear something that isn't ultimately like musical colonialism, right? Because he's a
yeah.
South African guy doing this instead of, I don't know,
Paul
putting a
Simon.
Tahitian choir and steel drums together for one particular harbor.
Yeah, that also.
I don't think Paul Simon is as egregious as Jimmy has been on Graceland, because
Yeah,
at the
I
very
think
least
that.
he's got Ladysmith Black Mambazo, which is a South African vocal group, and for the most part they are actually doing like their own normal thing on that album.
Yeah, I have a note about Graceland when we get into Steel Drum Watch, because I think there's some interesting. Mostly, it's that I think that because they're both 1986 albums, there is a metric where I could see people being like, spoilers for the album listeners. Jimmy is kind of goes hard into Caribbean music on this record, a lot less like country and western stuff going on. And there's part of me that wanted to be like, oh, he's going into like world music because he's like tracing
It's
the trend of
not though.
Graceland.
It's really southern. It's very Gulf America,
It's very
actually.
southern. It's very Gulf. Also, this album beats Graceland by a month.
Oh, does it? It comes out before Graceland.
Oh.
Okay.
No, 2 actually. It comes out in June of 1986. Graceland came out in August,
Interesting.
like end of August. So it beats Graceland by at least 2 months.
Wow, that's
Um,
intensely interesting album, intensely interesting timing.
but before we're not talking about the album yet, actually.
Yeah, what have you been listening? So did you go listen to Graceland too?
I did not actually listen to Graceland. I've heard it before. I think the album's fine.
Yeah.
I most of the music's like good. I love Call Me Al. I don't know anybody who honestly dislikes Call Me Al.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the opener, The Boy in the Bubble.
That one's also good. But no, this week, first of all, I actually listened to a good amount of extracurricular Jimmy this week. I listened to the mix I made for songs you know by heart, the Tom's mix of songs you know by heart.
Oh, I should go do
a couple
that.
more times. It's really I'm pleased with myself. I think it did very well. I also re-listened to Havana Daydreamin' because I thought it was one of there's 2 albums that I think are reasonable to compare to Floridays from Jimmy's sort of heyday, and they're Havana Daydreamin' and A1A.
That is exactly what I thought too. I'm glad we're on the same page. I had to go listen to a couple of the Jimmy albums that I thought would be like where this one might hover around in my personal rankings to sort of get a view of where it might end up.
Yeah, and I thought I wasn't going to get around to listening to other music, but I started playing this game. You watched me play this game a little bit. It's called Neon White.
Yeah,
it's like
this
a
weird
speedrunning game.
Christian speedrunning game.
Thematically very Christian, but the actual writing and themes are inconsequential to the game itself, which is going really fast. But
They're
one
only
thing that
consequential insofar as that it's badly written, I hear.
It's quite badly written and very Christian, but its soundtrack is done by one of my favorite electronic artists, Machine Girl,
Okay.
which I've heard described sort of differently. A lot of people call them industrial. I would call them industrial. They don't like industrial. I've heard the main guy behind Machine Girl refer to it as electronic punk, and I think that's pretty reasonable. It's a great soundtrack. I went back and listened to their first album as well, which is Wolf Girl, I think, from 2015. That album's incredible and samples heavily from the cult classic werewolf horror film Ginger Snaps. Very fun. I love that album.
That is quite the combination.
I've had a weird week. Anyway, we should talk about this weird ass album.
We should. I've been, cruising through the Coconut Telegraph. It's a really good, primary source for the state of the Parrot Heads. And they're in a strange, almost threatening spot in 1986. I want to read you this little column that showed up in the Coconut Telegraph by Parrot Head Scott Salmon.
Scott Salmon?
Scott Salmon. These people do not have real names. So here's what he wrote in the Coconut Telegraph. Upon meeting a new person, the first question that I usually ask is, do you like Jimmy Buffett? If the person replies yes, then the next question to ask is, can I buy you a beer? If the person happens to reply with Jimmy who to my first question, then I stroll away without a sound and search for someone who may be more important than the other, someone who just may deserve a free beer. So if you ever happen to be asked, do you like Jimmy Buffett, by a short man with rapidly thinning hair, be careful how you answer his questions, especially if you are thirsty. That's from March 1986. It's real sociopathic shit there.
That's a weird thing to say, man.
Yeah. But the Coconut Telegraph actually has quite the range of distribution at this point. They're distributing to all 50 states, Canada, Germany, Israel, and Turkey. The Gavin Report reported that their readership was about 4,000 by June of 1986.
I have a couple of notes about Jimmy's touring life, because I think that as a touring artist, he's becoming much more popular in the 80s, and I think that it's something we have to talk about more often. We talked a little bit about it last week for Songs You Know by Heart. A piece from Recording Engineer magazine here, primarily about the audio equipment they use, but it cites an issue of Performance magazine from June of 1986 that ranks Buffett and the Coral Reefers as the number 3 top grossing box office draw in the country.
Yeah, they're a big fucking touring band.
They're massive.
They've been consistent about that. Even when Jimmy's been losing money on his albums and he's been, knocked off the charts, he's still big on the tour circuit. Yeah, well, let me talk about the tour a little bit. There's a lot to talk about in terms of the context, because there's a lot going on in 86. But there's
a lot going on.
So the Floridays tour is 57 shows June through August. The big changes are that he has a second keyboardist now, Vince Melamed. He's going to become very pivotal to the final performance of the album, let's say. Tim Schmidt is out on bass. Tim Drummond is in on bass. He's got a secondary bassist to fill in between, whose name is George Meatball Porter. And Jimmy nicknamed him for, I think you can probably guess, eating a meatball sandwich. And that's how we get the nickname Meatball. And then, interestingly enough, Josh Leo's out for a small leg of the tour. Who fills in for him but former Coral Reefer guitarist Tim Krekel? Oh, and then Larry Lee is in on percussion. I think he replaces Sam Clayton, but I didn't write that necessarily. Maybe he's just in addition. In May of 1986, Jimmy actually appears in a segment on Good Morning America promoting Floridays. And I
missed this.
He's playing the song Floridays at the beginning of the video, like just him and a guitar. And he's talking about how he's living back in Key West. So you can seek this out on YouTube, and you can watch Jimmy introduce a friend of his as owning the best fish sandwich joint in Key West, and then immediately ask for a cheeseburger. Then he's told that he's not making cheeseburgers today, and Jimmy is audibly sad and decides to order a fish sandwich instead. Oh. And then there's this montage of making the fish sandwich, where Jimmy refers to it in a voiceover as health food over a shot of the fish being deep fried. And then we watch Jimmy eat the sandwich. Yeah. Oh, but the actual important thing is that Jimmy actually calls his fans parrot heads by name in this. He refers to his fans as parrot heads, so he's definitely acknowledged the nickname by then. It's
the phenomena has begun.
It's stuck fast. Here's the other part, is that in May 1986 as well, there is a Fort Myers restaurant that opens under the name Margaritaville, and Jimmy's lawyer scrambles to trademark the name because they forgot to do that.
Yeah.
So this is when we're actually getting into trademarking the name Margaritaville for restaurants and cafes and stores, because they didn't do that with the store, which opened the year before. The album was recorded at, interestingly, New River, Fort Lauderdale. So it's his actual first recording in Florida since Son of a Sailor, and then in Arden at Memphis and Village Recorders in LA. His daughter is credited on the mini conga for the album, which is interesting. I don't know what a mini conga is, whether that's just a bongo. And I can't pick it out in the mix. I don't know if you can. I
don't think it's a bongo, because Ralph McDonald is credited on bongos on this album.
Yes, this is true. There is one other big thing we need to talk about here in terms of the context of this album, and that is that pretty much everywhere we see Jimmy in 1986, we see a woman by the name of Sunshine Smith. So Donna Sunshine Smith, per an interview in 1990, said she met Jimmy in Key West in the early 70s when he first came. And the two of them seemed to be kindred spirits, but they went separate ways. Jimmy moved on to back to Nashville for his career. Sunshine stayed in Key West to raise a family. She married a guy by the name of B.J. Martin. They had 2 sons, and her and her husband made a living running the Key West Theater, among something else that we'll discuss in a moment. But in 1977, they developed this 40-minute documentary called the Key West Picture Show. It's essentially a celebration of Key West life and culture as it developed from the early 1900s to the 1970s. Supposedly it won some documentary awards, but I couldn't find details on that. And it's really down on tourism in Key West in favoring of celebrating the artist colonies that it's cultivated since the 1930s. So she's decently big at image building for Key West as well, like Jimmy, but from a different perspective. So their paths cross again, actually, in 1984, because Jimmy returns to Key West and finds that his old friend Sunshine is raising her 2 sons alone, and the bank is about to foreclose on her home. B.J. Martin also apparently was making money as a drug runner from Cuba, and so he was incarcerated.
Well...
So, what it seems to be is that Jimmy sees a friend in trouble and asks her to partner with him on the Margaritaville store. So, she's the manager of the Margaritaville store in Key West. It's not the sole reason the first store opens, because it's also well documented that, like, Jimmy's pissed off at seeing, like, bootleg concert t-shirts that don't give him any money, and also the shirts are spelling his name wrong. And the funny thing is that when the thing about them spelling his name as Jimmy Buffet, like Buffe 1T, it's reported in the Miami Herald, and it says it attributes that to Jimmy Buffet. It also spells his name wrong in the article. Yeah. Per Sunshine, she said that the motive was to help her get her life back together and that making money was really optional. She's also the person who confirms by 1990 that Jimmy and Jane are back together and that Jimmy has cleaned up his act. He rarely drinks. He no longer is doing drugs. So she's got like a really close connection to Jimmy to know all this. Because she's doing such a good job managing the store, and in fact, she's actually the one who comes up with the idea of doing the newsletter. She's the progenitor of the Coconut Telegraph. So she is extremely important at building the business.
So she's just sort of rapidly become like a key figure in Jimmy's life and work.
Yeah, and she's going everywhere. She shows up in the strangest places. When Jimmy gets his pilot license, he's congratulated by, like, his daughter Savannah is there on the airfield to congratulate him when he gets out of the plane. And she's accompanied not by Jane, but by Sunshine. She's with him down in Belize when he's doing a photo shoot for all the promotional imagery for Floridays and for the cover. I also, like, side note, that's kind of funny that the album called Floridays, the cover was not taken in Florida. The picture was taken in Belize. It's also
a good picture,
it's also why monkeys and iguanas are a line that shows up in multiple songs on this album. The testimony from Sunshine's sons also say that, like, because he was raising Savannah as a single parent, like co-parenting with Jane in different areas, and Sunshine was raising two kids on her own, that they sort of ended up parenting each other, like being co-parents together. Sunshine's sons think of Buffett as like a father figure. And then he asks her to start managing his life. So she's taking care of scheduling, travel, photo shoots, art direction for the Margaritaville brand, and Jimmy himself. She's credited with, like, art direction on albums up to 1999. And then she lays down some ground rules for Jimmy's personal life. The main one that I want to bring up here is that she told him, number one, no local girls, imports only, too much trouble. So that gives us a sense as to what Jimmy's been doing to sort of console himself in his separation from Jane.
Yeah.
So there's also some weird, like, kind of progressive-y stuff that Sunshine does with the store. She establishes a quasi, like, co-op profit-sharing directive for Margaritaville store employees, where some of the year-end profits go back to the staff, and then another, like, 5% on top of that go back specifically to, like, nonprofits that are benefiting Key West community. And then there's another, like, 5% on top of that in the 1990s that's going to go to national charities, and that's what starts the Singing for Change charity, which is something that Jimmy and Sunshine deal with until Jimmy's death. And Sunshine's still on the board for that, as far as I know. So she's integral in expanding Margaritaville into the cafe, and then later the restaurant business. By 1992, Sunshine estimates that over $5 million a year is made just on Coconut Telegraph mail orders. So she's she is the brains behind the entire operation. And the other part...
It seems like it.
The other part is, the thing is, like, we're not really Jimmy fans on this podcast. We're not parrot heads. But we do empathize with him. And we've been doing that all throughout his separation. We generally like to see him in a more stable state of mind, partly because it's really good for his music. It's also just nice to see Jimmy not struggling.
Yeah.
And the guy owed a lot to Sunshine. And I do think that, like, Sunshine is the person who gets Jimmy out of that funk and restabilizes him, gives him something to work towards that's not just, like, trying to please his fans.
It kind of seems like it, doesn't it?
And I think that might be a big reason why this album is a lot better than the last couple albums we've been dealing with. And
it seems likely. Like,
I think it's fair to say that even though we're not particularly fans of, like, the over-commercialized Jimmy and Margaritaville legacy, Sunshine Smith is probably the most secret hero in the Jimmy canon, and she does deserve some recognition. So
Yeah,
I suggest that
absolutely is.
Sunshine Smith is secret hero this week.
I think that's probably true. If like even if we're not fans of like the commercial direction Jimmy it goes in from, you know, about like 85 onward, she gave us this album, and this album's pretty good. It's deserving of a place on that list. I don't know if you're going to talk any more about the tour. I want to talk a little bit about this this Billboard article I mentioned a little earlier.
Oh yeah, please do.
That surveyed some people at the Floridays tour. So there's a bunch of stuff that's kind of interesting. For example, 56% never shop in record stores of the people who are at these tours.
Wow.
It says 65% of the audience owned some of Buffett's catalog. The figure rose to 86% among those who had previously attended one of his concerts. Asked to name a favorite album, we found the album You Had to Be There was the favorite of 31.1% of those who owned it. Other favorites are Son of a Sailor, Changes in Attitudes, Changes in Latitudes, and A1A.
Is this the article that talks about like the breakdown of like demographics of his audience, like age-wise?
A little bit. This is the on target.
Yes, okay,
on
this
target
is the
segment
same
Billboard.
column that I looked at.
Yeah, it says 54% of the audience at these concerts are men, and it seems like a lot of
That's
the women
not surprising.
are there being brought as dates.
That's
You know,
also not surprising.
I believe that. Yeah. One other thing really quick. This issue of Billboard is from August 2nd, 1986. The last note in this article says that 12% of the 1,300 people that they surveyed had already purchased Floridays. And lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the set lists that he's playing these days. You can find like set lists of like his tours on Buffett World.
Yep.
There's a lot listed for 1986 because he had quite a few tour dates. And there's a couple of notes that I think are really interesting. First of all, he opens up pretty much every show with Coconut Telegraph.
Yeah, he's been doing that for the last
He's been doing that
couple
a
years.
lot. I just want to point out the songs that are from this album that are on the set list. Those songs are Meet Me in Memphis, Creola, If It All Falls Down, and Nobody Speaks to the Captain No More, with I Love the Now as part of the first encore after Margaritaville. Occasionally there will be a second encore of
Floridays.
Another thing that I think is interesting is that 1986 is the first time I've seen on a set list Jimmy playing The Lawyer and the Asshole, which we've discussed before.
No, that
This is
one's
a song
interesting. He'd been playing that in 83. And I don't think he
so-
played it again because the whole point of that was that everyone expected Godzone Drunk on that 83 tour. So he did that one at the time. What doesn't make sense is that 3 years
why he's
later,
still playing it in 1986.
why he's just like, I'm going to bring The Lawyer and the Asshole out instead of
he
just
played
like,
it in August.
yeah.
I don't really know why he did that.
So I want to mention two things about the tour. Apparently the tour was sponsored by Corona Extra. So he's got a beer. Yeah, he's already got beer sponsors for the tour. The other thing is that he has a roadie called Charlie Allen, who at these shows is dressed up as a giant parrot dancing around on stage, which is insane. So Charlie Allen is a very portly middle-aged man, is the way I'll describe him. And apparently on the last Mango tour, he had dressed up as the woman on the back cover of the album and danced across the stage for that tour.
Okay.
So big party vibes. Oh, I do want to mention, so one more thing about the tours. I want to bring up a show in particular, which is a benefit show that he does in Long Beach, California at the end of August. This is the Get Tough on Toxics benefit show. The money went to Los Angeles Reasonable Limits Initiative, which is anti-high rises, so he's very much a fan of urban sprawl, our Jimmy. And Prop 65, which was the Safe Drinking Water and Toxic Enforcement Act of 1986. He played 4 songs at that show. By the way, it's him, Lindsey Buckingham, Don Henley, Glenn Fry, Joni Mitchell, Stevie Nicks, J.D. Souther, Neil Young, Warren Zevon. So a lot of people who were very synonymous with L.A. at the time, and then Jimmy.
Jimmy is synonymous with Florida?
Yeah. So he plays 4 songs in his set. He plays Margaritaville, Pirate Looks at 40, Brown Eyed Girl, and he plays Creola as the 4th song. which is kind of a wild pick.
It's a wild pick. I don't think it's a bad pick, but
It's not a
wild
bad
one.
pick, but it's a wild one for a benefit show where you're only doing 4 songs, and the other ones are Margaritaville and Brown Eyed Girl.
Like
you know?
like hits and then toss out Crayola.
Yeah, it's kind of a left field choice.
This album was produced solely by Mike Utley.
Oh yes, right. Okay, so I saw a an advertisement for it, and I figured out how Mike Utley was able to quell Jimmy's production spirit, which is that he was made an executive producer on the album. Is how he was named. So he didn't have to actually do anything. He just got a title.
Right,
so
yeah,
good on you, Mike Utley, for figuring that out.
Good job. Mike earns perhaps his secret hero position yet again a little bit. No, but his production on this album is significantly better than you would expect from having heard one particular Harbor.
Yes, yeah.
Let's now get into the album. This album opens with a song that was co-written by actress Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, I couldn't find the connection. All I can figure is probably through Harrison Ford, since Jimmy's friends with Harrison Ford. The reason Jimmy goes to Belize is because Harrison Ford is filming Mosquito Coast in Belize, and Jimmy goes down to party with him.
Yeah, another connection to Graceland as well, because Paul Simon's marriage to Carrie Fisher had failed at this point.
Right,
so
yeah. It's all 6 degrees of Jimmy Buffett.
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
This song's not bad.
It's not. It kind of reminds me with the backing vocals during the chorus. It kind of reminds me of what the Beach Boys kind of sounded like in the mid '80s, which sound wise, it's a little dated for now when we think about it. I don't think it's particularly bad. I think the Beach Boys were relatively okay in '85 doing a contemporary sound. That I still have a soft spot for that '85 Beach Boys album.
Yeah, I think there's also another thing I want to note is that I think the echo effect on Jimmy's voice on this song is a little weird.
It is, yeah. It gives it sort of a tinny quality. I started off by thinking that this song was like a worse version of Everybody's on the Run, but I actually think it might be a stronger version of Everybody's on the Run.
I think so. It's not like it's not like a great song, but kind of grading for an 80s curve, this is quite good from Jimmy. This is how my experience of this album started. It's just like, oh, okay, this is, this opener is pretty good. We've listened to a number of albums from Jimmy now where I think if it was on there, it would be the best song on the album.
Yeah. See, here's the thing. I think it is weirdly antithetical to Jimmy to write a song like this because it's explicitly anti-nostalgia, right? In how you're presenting yourself. The other thing about it is that Jimmy is at first you think it's that Jimmy wisdom of live in the now, live in the moment, seize the day, carpe diem. The actual message of the song is that you have to live in the now because you don't have a fucking choice. You cannot live in the past. You cannot depend on the future. You have to deal with life now. That's the message of the song.
It is kind of
which is, by the way, also I don't know if you ever read Carrie Fisher's autobiography, but that's very much how she writes. It's very much a Carrie Fisher thing.
I was going to say, this feels very much I haven't read that autobiography, but it feels to me like it's probably that's Carrie Fisher influence, because that is the kind of stuff that I always remember her saying a lot. The backing vocals on it are fun. I think there's a lot of interesting horn work on this song.
So that's the other thing is, I had mentioned before, back on we've had individual songs. Saxophones and lip service are the ones I can think of, where I do like the music when Jimmy acknowledges Black American music, which he doesn't do a lot. He does that quite a bit on this album. He's got some jazz in a couple songs. He's got
some gospel.
He's got 3 songs that are full on just Southern soul, Stax Records sounding songs. This is one of them.
Pretty enjoyable. This vein.
That's one of those things that grounds it in the Gulf, in the South, and makes it a very weirdly American album for some of the instrumentation on this and a few of the themes.
But I think ultimately this opening song is musically there, lyrically it's just kind of, it's got that very that vagueness about it, I feel.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess, but look, if we're opening with this album and we're sitting here thinking it's kind of a weak song, that's actually probably a strong starting point for this album if we think this is a weaker song.
I think this is pretty easily in the bottom half of songs on this album. And
But it's probably like
like,
a 5 or 6 out of 10.
yeah, considering like the quality of Jimmy's output in the 80s, that's quite the thing. I was certain that this was going to be a situation like with Everybody's on the Run, where it was going to be like, okay, so the opener is going to be
So
the best song on the
just
album.
by default, yeah.
Well, I should say I didn't actually think this. I was curious. I was like, I wonder if I'm going to think that, because my experience with this album was the day after we recorded the last episode, you messaged me, quote, "We have a problem. The album might be good."
Yeah.
And so I was drunk at the time, but I dropped everything and listened to it. And
So
I was
how
kinda
did
like, okay.
So let's move on now. What were your
Yeah.
first drunken impressions of this next song? Which, by the way,
Okay, so-
folks, let's explain this. The song is called Criolla. It is
The song's called
over
Criolla.
7 minutes long.
It's over 7 minutes
And
long.
the first line of the song
line is
is-
Criolla in my sola.
Yes, if you don't remember, we had a big problem with the rhyming conga with ronga in Salome Plays the Drum.
Yeah, so it's I was very worried about this, right?
Yeah.
The bongos are so prominent for like in the percussion for this.
It's a very percussion heavy song. That's why Ralph McDonald has a writing credit. Oh, sorry. Yes, I should say Jimmy, Ralph McDonald, and William Salter. William Salter is a bassist and soul singer songwriter. Ralph McDonald is a session percussionist, really good session percussionist, and I think he arranged this song percussion wise because there's a lot of percussion on it.
So this is a song that's 7 minutes long, starts with the phrase Criolla in my sola, has really prominent bongos on the percussion, and has like a 40-second steel drum solo. I wish this song was longer.
Yeah,
I
and it's
love this
honestly,
thing.
honestly,
It's incredible. It's
honestly,
amazing.
one of the top 2 songs on the album for me.
Pretty easily. I think this song is amazing. So it's just like this. It's a song that's like about like having this like strong connection to like Creole culture.
Yeah,
And like
it's this beautiful,
like-
very like sort of spiritual jazz song.
I kind of feel like it's really smooth. It's really enjoyable. It's great to listen to. I think this might be some of Jimmy's best work in terms of like warm nostalgia.
The only song I can think of that has the same like nostalgia lens to it is Life Is Just a Tire Swing. Because that's the only
this
other time
beats-
he ever talks about having this sort of like carefree youth that's passed him by and like
this-
reminiscing on it.
Life is Just a Tire Swing has its own qualities. I think this beats the hell out of Life is Just a
Oh,
Tire Swing. This is an
100%.
incredible song. You know, something that I say a lot, I haven't said it on this podcast, but I am very impressed when an artist takes something with trappings I dislike and executes it so well that I'm forced to recognize its quality. And I think that this song's writing and the performance on this from Jimmy and the Coral Reefers take this song that like on paper I am like built to dislike and makes it objectively really compelling. One of the things I'm really surprised by on this is that I really like Robert Greenwich's steel drum solo.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to this when we talk about Steel Drum Watch at the end of the album, but I do think that there has been, because again, we have to acknowledge Robert Greenwich is a good steel drum player. It doesn't always fit with Jimmy's music. I do think progressively the steel drums have become better integrated into the band's sound since they were introduced on One Particular Harbor, because that album was really egregious and it's gotten less so.
Yeah, which is weird because it's really like the steel drums all over this album.
Oh yeah,
and it's,
because so that's the other thing is like One Particular Harbor had like 8 out of 11 songs had steel drums on it. Riddles in the Sand, there were like, I don't know, 4 or 5 songs, like half the songs on the album. There were only 2 songs on the last album that had steel drums. And then this one, again, there's like 6 songs on the album that do have steel drums. There's
it's
a lot.
but like also I feel like the steel drums are used much more kind of subdued and back in the mix. They're used for like in very particular places, and like on this song,
Yeah,
like, it's
I mean, that
really,
was-
really excellent.
That was a big fucking problem on One Particular Harbor, is that they were mixed very badly and they were always right up front and everything else was really muddled.
Yeah, I
But
think
Mike
there's a
Utley
reason that
knows how to use a mixing board now.
it says something that the song that I liked on One Particular Harbor, liked was a strong term as well. The song that I kind of enjoyed off One Particular Harbor that had steel drums in it was one where the steel drums were like kind of in the background. Like that I think is saying something, but and this one it kind of they're back, but also the songwriting is better and the mixing is like listenable.
This song, it's in the same vein as It's Midnight and I'm Not Famous Yet, where I was just fucking flabbergasted at the
I'm
song.
just confused about it.
It's just like, nope, 100%. Like, this is like, stop the car immediately after previously stopping the car sort of a thing, where something I didn't expect Jimmy to do, and also he doesn't bungle it at all.
This song has a line in it towards the end that like seems like it should just be some goofy Jimmy shit, but that I really like. Which is
is it this? Forget about the mumbo jumbo. Say hello to the world of gumbo.
Hello to the world of gumbo.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that line. I think it's really fun. It's like I don't know. I think Jimmy's driven us insane. I think it's the only.
No, I think there's a lot of heart in that song, and that's what helps. Is it so much of the rest of Jimmy's stuff in the mid '80s has been very much no heart. Obvious, he's just trying to put something out. And I think he actually has something he wants to say here.
I think his heart's in this one, and I think that's clear because this album has 3 songs on it that have one writer, and it's Jimmy.
Yep.
Like there's 3 songs on this that were written solely by Jimmy. That's the first time that Jimmy's solo written anything in years.
We're gonna move on to the first Jimmy solo write since the B-side of One Particular Harbor with First Look. Now I have to say, this is my favorite song on the album.
I think it's really good. So this is a song. This song is not actually about the Gulf, right? This is about falling in love with Brazil.
This is the thing. It's the other side of the coin from Criolla. It's taking that same like jazzy sonic style. It's very like bossa nova samba-y.
Yeah, very much so.
And he's refining it into something less jam oriented than the jazz on Criolla, but it's also more lyrically similar to what Jimmy's reputation is with like the island escapism or the tropical escapism. Here's the thing. It's taking the larger theme of tropical escapism, and it's not hollow because what Jimmy's doing is he's centering it on the universal idea of falling in love with a place the first time you see it, which is an experience we know Jimmy has had with Key West.
We know Jimmy's had.
He's just mapping it onto someplace else for this song.
It's also like I feel like relatable in a particular way because even if like you don't necessarily connect to like how Jimmy feels about Brazil in this song, which I think is a reasonable way to feel about Brazil, right? Like I feel like most people have experiences of going somewhere and just being like, oh wow, this is incredible, right? It's part of the reason why I Have Found Me at Home is such like a emotionally affecting piece, I think. And this song is like, it's similar. It's a similar vein. It's very calm and enjoyable. Similarly, it has a lot of this instrumentation. I think there's a timbale on this song, which I think is very interesting. The chorus is entirely in Portuguese.
Yeah, so that's the other thing is like Jimmy's doing another thing here that like previously we've been like, roll my eyes, here we go again. Because, on Chanson, he bungled the French. On Desperation Samba, the Spanish didn't make any sense. And then I'm sitting here and I'm like... I
don't really like the sing-along lyrics on One Particular Harbor, the song. Like...
Yeah, or the Tahitian choir. But then we get... Look, and I am more familiar with sung Brazilian Portuguese than I am like French because I listen to a lot of bossa nova, and I think Jimmy actually might pronounce things okay here compared to the way he usually does with foreign languages.
There's something about it that just is like strikes me as much less obnoxious than a lot of those other tracks.
There's some like slurring with the sh, like vista, which is very much like if you were taught Portuguese in a classroom in America, you probably wouldn't pronounce it like you probably say vista like you would do in Spanish. But if you listen to like say like Tom Jobim sing in Portuguese because he's a native speaker, that's the way he would pronounce that. Like there's some slurring in there that makes you sort of sound a little more like a native speaker. I think there's some authenticity to that almost.
I think ultimately what comes down to for me for this is that these other sorts of songs. Obviously, Jimmy has some sort of connection to the French, probably through like Creole lifestyle. Yeah, I think Cajun lifestyle stuff like that.
But that's the other thing.
What this feels like to me is like, you look at like a Desperation Samba kind of thing. It doesn't feel like Jimmy cares that much about Spanish or about Tijuana, especially. This feels like he really likes Portuguese and legitimately loves Brazil. There's like an actual like emotional connection to that. I think that's kind of key because like again, he wrote this one himself.
I saw a Parrot Head. Parrot Head opinions are kind of mixed on this album. We'll get to that. I saw one Parrot Head refer to this album as Jimmy's most philosophical album, and I don't think that's actually true, but I do think that this might be one of Jimmy's most relatable albums in terms of themes.
There's a couple of songs on the there's honestly like a lot of songs on this that have like little bits of Jimmy wisdom in them, and like I'm kind of surprised again because like I don't hate all of them.
Let's
move along. Yeah, let's move along to a song that's not really tropical at all.
No, this is another one of those Stax record sounding ones, and you can tell it's a Stax record sounding one because it's called "Meet Me in Memphis."
This is "Meet Me in Memphis."
This
yeah,
is Jimmy and Michael Utley,
which is like a combo that personally I have been trained to be a little bit worried about in terms of songwriting. But you know what? It's another good one. I don't know what's happening.
It is.
We're 4 songs in, and all 4 songs are good.
I mean, this is very clearly a. First of all, it actually is set in the Keys because the first line is he's holed up in a hotel on Ramrod Key, right, or a motel on Ramrod Key. So he's just down the road from Key West in this song. This is definitely a song that's about Jimmy and Jane's relationship,
and like it feels like positive. Like I don't know if they're they're probably not back together at this point, but it feels
but things are healing.
It feels like reconciliatory.
Yeah.
There's been a lot. We've talked a lot about Jimmy and Jane's relationship the past, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 records.
This is the most positive song he's written about Jane since before they split, yes. Or I'd say it's the least sad and pathetic or depressed song about his relationship.
Yeah, it's not even like it's not really moving along. It's just sort of saying like, "Hey, we're gonna talk about stuff."
I mean, the entire song is literally just he's in a motel and he got a letter from Memphis saying, "Let's talk things out." Now, Jimmy uses the line "My wild days are through," which you can't help but feel like is a reference back to When the Wildlife Betrays Me.
1986 might be a little bit premature for him to say that, but I do think he's trying to get better.
Yeah. This song scored an 8 on the Matt Garita scale.
Really? That's high.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked by that.
Matt hears this a lot. I had forgotten to mention that I Love the Now also scores an 8 on the Matt Garita scale.
That's a little bit. That's more surprising to me, actually.
Here's the one I think you'll be surprised for. Criolla has a 6 on the Matt Garita scale.
That does seem strange.
I think that Criolla has any score on the Matt Garita scale is surprising to me.
That's definitely an odd one. I just want to talk a little bit about the musicality on this. It has a gospel chorus on the choir, which is very fun.
Yeah.
The chorus has lines that change to show the story of the song advancing.
I didn't even notice that, but yeah, now that you mentioned it, you're totally right. We're back in that narrative frame.
Yeah, it really kind of feels like on this album, like Jimmy is kind of very effectively reconciling like how he is in the 80s with like his older songwriting styles.
Maybe this is like Jimmy's like back to his roots album.
It kind of feels like that in a lot of ways.
Because honestly, I mean, this album doesn't sound like anything he's done since pre-changes, pretty much.
No, I think that like So first of all, the B-side has a couple of places where it falters a little bit on this album.
Yeah.
But the A-side is incredible, and that's like the reason we talked about A1A and Havana Daydreamin' is that like I think that like musically its closest relative is Havana Daydreamin' on a number of levels. But I also think that like you can connect it to A1A pretty strongly because it has one really, really stellar song.
Yeah, I would say that the A-side of this album is the best single side since the B-side of A1A.
I think this song has a really fun saxophone part.
Yeah, you keep getting proved wrong that Jimmy and a saxophone were a bad combination, which we had said all the way back on sax. As it turns out, it's okay.
I think it was then.
Yeah,
but like I think he has matured as like a songwriter and singer, and it's working all right. And secondly, the last line of this song has a kind of what I see as kind of a weird reference to Otis Redding sitting on the dock of the bay, and that doesn't even faze me all that badly because the song's that good.
It's also not the last time on this album that he's going to mention that he's going to make a direct reference to another song. He'll make a direct reference to one of his own songs on the B-side.
But we should move on to the last song on the A-side here, which is Nobody Speaks to the Captain No More. I think this song is Jimmy's best character work in like 10 years. Like
easily.
This is like this great portrait of a sad old soldier. He was important once, and now he's just a sad old saxophone player. I think he commits suicide during the song. It's just this really like effective, terribly tragic song.
And it's the second of Jimmy's solo written songs.
Yeah, this is another one that's written solely by Jimmy, and I think it's really effective. It's like you get such a good portrait of this sad old man.
And it's also like one of those like Coast and Marseille-esque, like there's some really weird full orchestration music in it. There's that great somber saxophone noise. And that's not the only time that he's gonna do this like great, like grandiose orchestral sound that's gonna work really well for a song. But it works really well here. And like just another like genius of like sequencing. This is a great song to end the side on.
No, it's so good because it's really somber and tragic.
Yeah.
Like it's really effective for like a number of reasons. It's I don't know. I love this.
But yeah, this is really close to being like a latter day he went to Paris.
Yeah, it's
and if not a latter day he went to Paris, then like a latter day Pirate Looks at 40.
You know, there's stuff that's like setting wise for this song. Like it's not in America, right? It's equatorial. Like
because the monkeys and iguanas.
Well, also mahogany mill.
Yeah,
right? There's a lot going on, but like it sort of speaks to like Jimmy kind of going back to roots, right? This feels like that.
100%. This album has been so good up until this point. Spoiler alert: he's gonna fuck this like at the last hurdle, but
he's gonna fuck it up. He's gonna fuck it up hard on the B side. But let's move along. Let's flip the record.
Yeah, let's flip the record on to side B, folks. So side B opens with the last of these three Jimmy solo writes.
The title track.
It's
Floridays.
By the way, our third Margarita score of 8 for this album.
That's pretty high. I don't think that B-side falters immediately. I think that this song is okay.
I did notice he stole the opening riff from Every Time You Go Away by Paul Young.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought it sounded familiar.
It sounds familiar. What? And then I had to go listen back, and I was like, no, this is exactly the sitar part from the beginning of Every Time You Go Away.
I think this is probably I don't know if it's the best, but I think it's among the best of the Jimmy Wisdom tracks.
Of overall?
Yeah, like I think it's up there in terms of like, Jimmy Wisdom tracks.
Probably. I don't know. We need to compile ourselves a list of all the Jimmy Wisdom tracks so I can keep track of them. I can remember which ones are which. I would agree with that because I'm not entirely certain that this like really is like. What's the Jimmy Wisdom? They're just like, I'm looking for better days.
Here's what I think it is, right? My immediate reaction to this is that like this is not like it mentions the gospel from the coast, right? Which is clearly like evangelizing like the quote unquote mellow lifestyle. Okay. But it feels like it's not evangelizing the gospel from the coast. It feels like it's reflecting on a time when you're wishing for that lifestyle.
Okay, I get that.
I think that a ton of that comes from the outro, right? Because the outro is really somber, and I think that
it's got those backing vocals. Yeah,
it's not about having Floridays, right? About living in Floridays. It's about wishing to live in Floridays. About mourning a time when you didn't have them, right? About not having those like brighter times in your life.
Yeah,
and that is such a better song than let's chill out, baby.
Right.
Like, Jimmy's like vacation lunatic concept that like he's writing about a lot. It's much more powerful as a nebulous desired thing than it is in practice as like an actual lifestyle you live.
This is one of two really strong songs on the B-side that both sort of deal with Jimmy essentially saying, like being his personal testament to, I'm better now. I'm doing better. I'm back in Florida. I feel better. Yeah. I'm writing better. Sunshine Smith is a secret hero. That being said, really the line about Beirut is kind of clunky. It's another like reminder of like Jimmy's not good at political commentary.
He's not great at political commentary. He's still Jimmy. He's got some clunkers.
Yeah, he's just like people on the beaches of Beirut just shooting each other's lives away. It's like
Yeah,
That didn't need to be
It's
in
like-
there. That really
I don't
didn't
know
need
about
to be
that,
in there, Jimmy.
yeah, but I think this song would be like okay without the outro. I think with the outro, it's like honestly kind of affecting. I think
The
it's really good.
outro is really important because that's again, that's almost like a gospel influence there.
I feel like that's really where like the emotional core of the song is. Also, Jimmy has a couple of pretty good lines on this. I really like the fifth verse where it's like, on the corner of walk and don't walk, I'm back to live in Floridays, blue
Yes,
skies and ultraviolet rays.
I did like the on the corner of walk and don't walk. It's another one of those really good, like weird, only Jimmy could come up with that sort of like geographical observation.
It's really I think it's like a good song. It's
Yeah.
this album is like so far exclusively pleasant surprises.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably when actually no, I would probably give it to Nobody Speaks to the Captain No More. This is probably the best Jimmy written song lyrically. Outside when Nobody Speaks to the Captain No More. Out of the ones that I think that he was mostly writing the lyrics for.
Like,
the next song, my hot take is that the next song is the worst written song on the album, but not the worst performance.
Yeah, we can talk about why, but I think that's true. We can move along.
Yeah,
so we have the first of I think two real bad misses on this album, and one of them is much worse than the other.
So this one is the only one that's not written at all by Jimmy. It's written by his drummer Matt Betton. If It All Falls Down. This is like Matt Betton's like very bad biographical poem of Jimmy, where he continually like refers to him as a calypso poet, and he rhymes things with things 3 times.
A lot, yeah.
Which I mean, again, so like going back to Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan does that on like The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll to explain how like monotonous the working life of Hattie Carroll is. Like it can be used to actual like allegorical effect. Not here. We had people to make us those things. We had people to sell us those things. Didn't have enough room for those things. We built lots of self-storage.
Feels like a Jimmy Wisdom song with a bunch of really tortured and confused metaphors.
Let me tell you what, it makes me appreciate Jimmy's lyrics, because whenever this is like the first attempt we actually have of somebody who's not Jimmy trying to write a Jimmy Buffett song, and lyrically it sucks.
It's pretty bad. The first like entire section where it's all like about like murder mysteries is like, what are you doing? What is this? They're checking the evidence, maybe some charges pressed.
Yeah,
the only one they got me on is some misdemeanor craziness.
My life is like a book written by James Joyce and Agatha
Christie. Yeah. I will say there's exactly one line in the song that I kind of like, which is actually the first time that it mentions Calypso poet, which says, guidance counselor said your scores are anti-heroic. Computer recommends hard drinking Calypso poet. I kind of like that. And then it says Calypso poet several more times and I like it less.
Yeah, the first line is okay, I guess.
The first line's okay. The rest of the time it comes up is like, if Jimmy wrote this, I would have assumed that Calypso poet was a hasty rebrand after the disappointing album sales from the Gulf and Western rebrand. But he didn't, so I think we can toss that theory out.
It's the only song in this album that leans into that whole like Calypso poet, parrot head, Caribbean soul, I just can't control, haha, live free in the tropics thing. Like, it's the only song on the album that does that specifically, and that's why it sticks out like a sore thumb. The other album does, or the next song does it a little bit, but
I like the next song much more.
Yes.
The song that follows this is No Plane on Sunday.
And again, we have something that like Jimmy has never done before, because like there's a transition between the last song and this, like they segue into each other. I didn't know Jimmy was capable of doing medleys, can he? But yeah.
I don't know. This one's pretty enjoyable.
No Plane on Sunday, like, maybe one come Monday.
Yeah, he references Come Monday on this explicitly. I think that must have been on purpose. It's just this kind of like enjoyable song about like being in a bad situation and being like, well, might as well make the most of it.
Yeah, so the other, it's weird because I noticed in the second verse, it's not the only time he's ever mentioned this, but they're running strictly on island time, right? That's a common theme. Jimmy actually presents this as being a bad thing for the narrator in this song, and the narrator is clearly not in the wrong the way that he's presented. And that is a weird thing for Jimmy to do.
This is a really interesting song, partially just because it's really good, I think. Instrumentally, I want to talk about two things. First of all, I really like the like rhythmic guitar part on this.
It's pretty good.
It's really enjoyable. And also, I think the steel drum backing is really fun. I think it's really nice.
yeah, I was pleasantly surprised about this song being, what gets transitioned to from the last song, because I didn't like the last song too much. I really do think like the last song, ultimately the final song on this album is so memorably bad for one major reason, but I do think the last song really lands in more like an AHAG award territory. Because it's not particularly thought provoking, right?
Not really. It's we'll get to it in a bit. We have one more song to talk about before we get to it. I don't have
Yeah.
much more else to say about No Plane on Sunday. I think
No,
it's just a
not
really
not
enjoyable
really.
song.
I just think that it's an interesting twist for him to not present the island time as being a positive thing, and that being the actual like tension in the song is interesting.
Kind of gives us a little bit of that like original Margaritaville flavor.
Yeah,
You know,
a little bit.
a
But
little bit.
let's move on. Let's move back to Key West for a
Yeah,
song,
when the
another
coast is
song
clear.
that is definitely set in Key West. It's got some interesting angles to it, right?
Yeah,
Because the song is about Jimmy being irreparably changed by his career living in Key West, which is an angle that wasn't explored in I Heard I Was in Town.
Yeah, it's kind of like a similar like perspective. I changed Key West, but Key West changed me.
Yeah, the line "Hello, Mr. Other Me." I rarely get to talk to you. It's indicative of that change.
Sort of going back to the I heard I was in town. I really like the almost like it used to be before the circus came to town. It really does feel like he's kind of recognizing like, yeah, he changed Key West irreparably, right? But also like it is still Key West. And sometimes when the tourists leave, it still feels like the Key West that he fell in love with.
Yeah, and we're getting, of course, this. I forgot to say, this is a song that was co-written by Mac McAnally, which I think is his third song for Jimmy. I think I believe they're getting better. I think the first Mac song was the worst out of the three. I don't actually remember what the second one is, but the first one was "It's My Job," and I thought that was bland.
"It's My Job" is pretty annoying. I think that this is like the better one for me. This doesn't affect me the same way that like I heard I was in town did. It kind of like my brain slides off of this one in a way that almost makes me want to say like it's an AHAG thing because I don't really remember it all that well. But I think that like if this did have an AHAG, it would be the best of them for sure because it's a good song.
Really, I really like this song because again, like Nobody Speaks to the Captain No More, it's got that really beautiful orchestral arrangement. But then the other part of that is like it's a song about Jimmy being honest about his relationship with Key West and himself.
It's historically something we've liked. It's
yes. The other thing is also like, look, the song is based around wordplay, and it's good wordplay, which is not one we get usually. Because when the coast is clear can mean when we're free to talk. It also could mean when the coast is literally clear of tourists. Yes.
Yeah. I didn't. Yeah, you're selling me on this song. Like I think it's like it does have like a lot to it. It's got like the soaring strings. It almost has like a Come Monday sound to it a lot of times. Having these like sort of slow, somber ballads like this one can hit better when the album is like mostly obnoxious rockers and novelty tracks, and this song doesn't really have any.
Yeah, that was part of the reason why we liked Coast of Marseille so much on Son of a Sailor. It's because it was kind of a quieter moment.
I also think that song is just very good. But
yes, that song is very good. Keith Sykes, we still love you.
Yeah, for real. You're forgiven for doing that part on Volcano. Yeah, this song's fine. I think it's between fine and good. This album so far has been like one miss, and that miss has not been totally unlistenable.
Yeah, and then Jimmy is gonna completely whiff it here.
Jimmy's gonna completely fucking whiff it.
I say Jimmy's gonna completely whiff it. If you look, there are 6 people credited on this song. So
yeah, so I mentioned.
I think that gives you. This is "You'll Never Work in This Business" again. By the way, but I think this goes to your point about like not being a fan of the music. I think everyone's credited essentially because they didn't have a musical direction for this, and they were just like, let's just groove, fellas, and so that's why everyone's credited.
Yeah, I want to mention really quick something production wise, which is that like I mentioned that like in general this production all feels much better than it felt on One Particular Harbor. There's 2 songs that I feel like it just feels like everything's loud for no reason again, like one particular harbor. And those two songs are If It All Falls Down and You'll Never Work in This Business Again.
Yep.
Everything just sounds loud to me, and I don't know why.
Yeah, maybe Jimmy got at the controls for those two.
Yeah, so I don't love this song musically.
Here's the thing.
main problem
Jimmy
with
had
it-
to have been at the controls for this one because we know where Michael Utley was. He was busy doing all the keyboards because the other keyboard guy, Vince Melamed, he was too busy
doing an
anti-Semitic
caricature.
voice. Yes.
Just like a Hollywood agent Jewish stereotype.
But also a Transylvanian Jewish stereotype too, because it kind of sounds like Dracula. Yeah.
He said like a lot of it does not sound like Dracula. The last one where he says you'll never work in this business again, like it sounds like he's like Dracula.
Yeah. Again, so let's talk about it. There's no reason for it to be disbidness because the only person in the song that would be corrupting the English by way of their accent would be the anti-Semitic character. And then when it comes time for him to say the line, he says, this business.
I'm looking at the lyrics on Genius, and it literally says you're leaving. What about my 15%? Like VAT for what?
Yep.
I think this song is here to remind us that it's Jimmy in the 1980s.
So, yeah, of course, the thing is it starts off with this really deep voice doing like he told it to the monkey and he didn't talk back. He told it to the iguana and he didn't attack. Makes no sense to the rest of the song. Also, just for some reason, the monkey and the iguana is back from Nobody Speaks to the Captain No More.
So here's the thing. You could just like not have this song on the record, and the record would still.
I know
be
if it ended
minutes.
with when the coast is clear, it'd be great.
If it ended with when the
it would be a contender for one of his best album. Yes,
I think this would be his best album if it didn't. If it ended on When the Coast is Clear instead of
You'll Never Work in This Business Again. And that's the thing is, if you took this song off, it would still be Jimmy's longest album. This album is 46 minutes. If you took it off, it would still be like 43 minutes. It'd be like a minute and a half longer than Changes.
Yeah, it's such a bizarre decision. It really, like I mentioned on our A1A episode, the Smiths album, The Queen is Dead, which I felt like ended on the worst song on the album, and I thought that was a really baffling decision. That album also, like the penultimate song is the best song on the album. That's not the case here, I don't think. I think there's a couple songs that I think are better than When the Coast is Clear on this.
If you switched When the Coast is Clear and Nobody Speaks to the Captain No More and ended on Nobody Speaks to the Captain No More.
I don't think you want to do that because like I don't think this is an album that Jimmy wants to end on a somber note, right? Because he's in a better place.
Okay.
You don't want to end on Nobody Speaks to the Captain.
So what would we end with?
I think When the Coast is Clear is the appropriate ending song.
Oh, okay, all right.
It's not like the best song on the album, but I think it's the best closer.
Yeah, probably. Unless you end with Criolla, would you end with Criolla? That would be a bold choice.
I think Criolla is the second song on this album is really good placement, like sequencing wise. The best sequencing decision. The best
you know what? See, that's the thing.
Is obviously just taking your record of Floridays and chipping off the track for "You'll Never Work in This Business Again." Literally, like damaging the record so it doesn't play that song anymore.
Yeah, just cut a groove that goes right from The Coast is Clear to the run out groove.
Yeah, literally, I'm saying like take a knife, heat it up, and like flatten the section that has "You'll Never Work in This Business Again." Damage your record so it doesn't have the song.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. Is you can't end with Criolla because Criolla, I think, has to go immediately into First Look. I think that's part of the reason it's
such a
really
strong
good.
1-2 punch. Yeah,
this is a fucking weirdly good album.
It's
insane.
Until
minus the last 3 minutes and 10 seconds.
Yeah, like even like If It All Falls Down is like it's an obnoxious song, but like
all
of Jimmy's songs have at least one like song that's either forgettable or a clunker.
Yeah, it's kind of a forgettable clunker for me.
Yeah, it's kind of a forgettable clunker. I think If It All Falls Down is honestly the actual AHAG like contender for this week because like unfortunately it can't go to the last song because it has one part about it that I'm never gonna forget.
Yeah, but I mean like also traditionally, I don't think our AHAG award has ever also been the worst song in the album because you remember it, and the last song is definitely the worst song in the album.
It definitely is. I think If It All Falls Down is pretty easily the AHAG. It's such a bizarre album. So much of it is just really good. I almost want to say like buy this album, you just play the A side. Like I don't know if you ever flip it. You just put it away after the A side's done.
No, because I feel like there's worth in listening to Floridays and When the Coast is Clear and No
Yeah,
Plan
No
on
Plan on
Sunday.
Sunday. Like all of that's really good. It's really just like even if it all falls down is like whatever, right? Who
Yeah, I
cares?
mean,
Its
this
transition into No Plan
is
on Sunday is really enjoyable. It's
yeah.
really just you'll never work in this business again. It's so upsetting.
I started listening to this album and then just switched it off before You'll Never Work in This Business Again. It was much better.
It's much cleaner.
I do think this is like easily a top 5 Jimmy album.
I think so. I think that like
I don't know
we have, like,
whereabouts
a
in the
little
rankings
ranking.
it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be top, but
I'm gonna put it right over the K-San recording and right below Somewhere Over China.
see, I have to go back and listen to Somewhere Over China because the thing about Somewhere Over China is it has that really dull spot right in the middle.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like Somewhere Over China, I think has like worse. It doesn't have like highs. It has a couple of like lulls, but it doesn't have the low that Floridays has, right? Like it has like the
Yeah.
weird kind of Orientalist instrumentation on the title track. I think that like having that instrumentation is less egregious than an actual caricature. Like
So
Yeah.
shall we do Steel Drum Watch? Shall we actually talk about the instrumentation on this album?
we should start with Steel Drum Watch this week before we
Okay.
get into reviews.
He went to Jimmy, looking for steel drums bothering him so. Well, steel drum killed his lady, left him with only one question. Which way do I steer for my steel drums?
Man, this album's fucking weird. So like the last couple of albums, right, with the Gulf and Western stuff, with Songs You Know by Heart, we've been talking a lot about Jimmy kind of reintroducing country music to the fold. Right?
Yeah, it's
Bringing
just a
it back into the
complete
sound.
pivot back.
Yeah, throw all that shit out. We don't have country music. Steel guitars out of here, right? This album is covered in exotica. It's got congos or bongos on everything. There's timbales. Easily over half the songs have steel drums on them.
I think it's 6 out of 10
prominent that's ever
songs.
been. Yeah, a lot of it's much more prominent that's ever been on even some of his more recent album. And the fucked up thing is that most of those were good decisions. Like,
Yeah, it's
I think I like every steel drum part on this album.
yeah. I was not annoyed by the steel drums at all. Like I said, he's been integrating them better. And the thing is, if Jimmy Buffett is going for, I think this is the best realization of that sound he wanted on Changes. This is the best
Yeah, I think so.
representation of that like blend of music.
I think so. This is really enjoyable.
Like honestly, like I think a song like Floridays is probably his best representation of life by the beach since the title track from Havana Daydreamin'.
I think so. Can we talk a little bit about the singles for this album?
Did you look this up? Because I did not. Because nothing
they're
charted.
available on Wikipedia. So
Okay.
before the album came out, the singles were "I Love the Now," backed with "No Plane on Sunday." Reasonable.
Okay, yeah, you're getting both sides of the album there. You're getting the Stack side, you're getting the Gulf side.
Yeah. The second single release was in September of '86. They released Criolla.
I was
backed
gonna
with
say,
"You'll
yeah,
Never Work in This Business Again."
I do remember them releasing Criolla. See, you know what they would have done? You know what they should have done is they should have cut Criolla in 2 parts and done Criolla Part 1, Criolla Part 2 for a double A side.
And then in January of '87, I think this must have a song off of the next album on it.
That's a non-album single you're thinking of.
It is. It's a song called "Take It Back."
Yeah, we're gonna cover
backed
that on the big box set.
Got it. And that's backed with Floridays. So like,
Really, Floridays was not an A side.
it was not an A side. I feel like it probably should have been, but I think they
Yeah.
did the non-album single as the A side, which I think is reasonable. Unfortunately, like "You'll Never Work in This Business." If it was Criolla backed with Floridays, very reasonable singles release schedule.
Oh, probably.
Unfortunately, releasing "You'll Never Work in This Business Again" as a single, it is representative of the album because, like, why is it there? Drives me goddamn insane. The last thing I want to say about the music on this is, like, I mentioned earlier that, like, this album leaning so much more into the Caribbean instrumentation, like, there's part of me that my immediate reaction is like 1986 leaning into like Caribbean instrumentation. That's Trend Chasing off Graceland. This album came out a month before Graceland, and if it was Trend Chasing off Graceland, I think it would have more Zydeco on it. because Zydeco is like,
Yeah.
Louisiana music. Like,
Yeah, there'd be some accordion on this, and there's not.
there'd be some accordion. Yeah, musically, it's weird because it's got so many choices that traditionally we've been really down on, and I think it's a really enjoyable album, like musically.
So, on that note, let me say something about boat drinks here.
Boat drinks. I think I got boat drink fever. Beatrice, I drank 6 more boat drinks. 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 Somebody sound the alarm.
We've only got 4 drinks. 2 of them are wine. We've got wine mentioned on Criolla and on When the Coast is Clear, which is balanced, the second and then the second to last song on the album. So we've got some wine balance. We've got mention of beers on No Plan on Sunday, but for the first time since the introduction of rum on Changes in Latitude, we have introduced another category to the charts, which is in First Look. There's the mention of the hoodoo drink. And I had to really go looking to figure out what this was. So I was like, is this like is it specifically like a Brazilian cocktail he's talking about? And what I came to the conclusion is that it is the hoodoo chicory liqueur. So we've got liqueurs on it. So, if we ever ended up getting like a Cointreau or a Benedictine or Grenadine or something, that'll go on that list. There,
chicory liqueur is a hell of a thing. That sounds bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So we've got we've got 18 wine, 17 beer, 10 rum, 7 cocktails comprising 1 Bloody Mary, 1 margarita, 1 Havana, 2 daiquiris, 1 purple passion, 1 martini, 5 whiskeys, 2 gins, 2 tequilas, 1 scotch, 1 hoodoo chicory liqueur.
So I've got a couple of reviews. Let's start with Head Parrot Head, because you said that like you think we're actually gonna mostly agree with him this week, and I'm very curious.
I'm gonna take us back 25 and a half years here, June 12th, 2000. And Head Parrot Head says this: with calypso beat and down island sound, this disc really grooves. The one song that doesn't seem to fit here is You'll Never Work in Dis Business Again. It sounds too rough and poppy with the rest of the songs. The live version on Feeding Frenzy is absolutely flawless and not performed live as often as it should be. I can't speak to that because we haven't done that album yet.
Also, I cannot possibly imagine that a live version of this song is any better.
I cannot possibly imagine that a live version of the song would be... No, I guess I could. I hope they don't do the verse. I hope they don't do the voices on it. I Love the Now is reminiscent of Everybody's on the Run, and Criolla has just the right dash of Cajun spice in its calypso rhythms. The same is true for First Look, which takes you down to Brazil for a short 4 minutes that seem to last all day. Meet Me in Memphis has enough blues in it, soul in it, to sound like a Temptations cover, and yet it surprisingly fits on this disc. There are 2 songs here that tend to keep the CD... There are 2 songs on here that tend to keep the CD, is what he wrote. Tend to keep the CD, I think is what he mean. From being a tour de force, they are Nobody Speaks to the Captain No More and When the Coast is Clear. I do think that's probably the most egregious thing that we're going to have a disagreement here. They are good songs, but they could have been a pair of nice surprises for the Ballads CD in the box set. Listening to the title track makes you think you're listening to A1A. There are 2 songs on here that sound like they're actually one song, If It All Falls Down and No Plane on Sunday, and are 9 solid minutes of hot and wild Caribbean fun. Score 4.5 of 5 Coronas.
When I listened to this, I messaged you that I was also very surprised by this album. I feel like the Parrot Heads have known about this thing for a while, but nobody listened to them because, like, the reasons they say it's good are the same reasons they say all the rest of it is good. Like, all the rest of Jimmy's work is good when it's not.
Yeah. What do your reviews say, though?
Okay, let's talk about it. So, first of all, I have a review from Hi-Fi Stereo Review.
Is this a contemporary review?
This is contemporaneous, yeah. Both of these are
Okay.
contemporaneous. Well, actually, my second one is from 1987. But so this one is from Hi-Fi Stereo Review. It says, performance subdued, recording good. In contrast to his image of a rip-roaring good timer, Jimmy Buffett has a reflective side that often produces a plangent, elegiac mood, as witness on this album's Nobody Speaks to the Captain No More. Such songs are always a welcome respite from Buffett's high-energy honkers, but on Floridays we have a preponderance of low-key songs that either sit back and reminisce or lays in the shade with no thought of going anywhere. The set is always genial, however, and the delivery, musicianship, and arrangement, which vary from calypso, salsa, country, and Memphis Stax Volt horn, unfailingly first-rate. Still, Buffett's smarty pants wit surfaces only in You'll Never Work in Dis Business Again, the last cut. Listening to all that comes before, I find it's hard to lay back so often without nodding off. So I think that's somewhat reasonable. Oh, speak of The Queen is Dead. This is the year that The Queen is Dead came out. It's like around the same time.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I guess they hated doing good closers in 1986.
I guess, yeah.
All right, my second review is from Audio Magazine. It says, Jimmy Buffett's easygoing sunny skies disposition is captivating, and his songs lope along in an amiable, tuneful kind of way, which I find irresistible. His Margaritaville is a classic, one of the cheery songs about drowning one's sorrows ever penned, but I swear if the man gets any more laid back, he's going to tip his chair over and whack his head on the paraquet. Floridays is a really pleasant collection of songs, but they're so consistently mellow that one longs for a bit of honest-to-God tension every now and then. Oh, Jimmy works himself up into an almost rocking mode on occasion. You'll Never Work in This Business Again and Meet Me in Memphis. But it's akin to the rocking of a hammock in a strong breeze. Nothing ever cooks. Taken individually, most of these cuts make for some satisfying listening. All have attractive melodies, neat Caribbean-flavored arrangements, and clever lyrics. How can you dislike a guy who's got Criolla in his sola? All that's lacking is a bit of variety. It says the recording is good and well produced. I think I agree mostly. Buffett's voice is often recorded front and center to reveal the man's warmth and intelligence. This is a likable disc that goes well with a cold, frosty margarita and mental images of sand and sun. This is why I feel crazy. It's like, I feel like the things that people say are the same things everyone says about Jimmy, and what none of them say is that this album's way better than like most of the other ones that sound like this.
It also seems to be that you can tell that we're not the ones going crazy because nobody in 1986 seemed to have a problem with the anti-Semitic voice on You'll Never Work in This Business Again. They just seem to ignore it. And now that I say that, that actually is against our favor. That actually makes us seem like we're the crazy ones. But like we're hearing a voice that's not there, Tom.
It's so obviously there. I don't know what to do with all this.
No, I think it's difficult for people to quantify Jimmy, mainly because you're not supposed to think about him. We've been through this before, is that we're doing something ultimately futile, which is thinking about an artist that doesn't want to be thought about.
Yeah, but it's like sometimes that really rewards you. I think it's a rewarding experience for the most part on this album. Like being familiar with Jimmy, like we are, and thinking critically about Jimmy makes this album even yet more enjoyable. But it makes like a Last Mango in Paris really a headache. Like,
yeah,
I don't know what to do with Jimmy anymore. Like.
I know what to do with him. Go bash on his next album, which
what's next?
He's shaved off the mustache. It's hot water.
Oh, the mustache. You know what? This album was just an excellent farewell to Jimmy's mustache.
Yeah, I'm sure next week we'll be saying that the secret hero was Jimmy's mustache all along.
For keeping us from hot water. Yeah.
Yeah, the mustache was doing Don Gant's work.
I had a theory. I had a hypothesis when we started this that I thought that hot water was like a major like tipping point of Jimmy from kitsch into just unlistenable crass commercialism. I think that what we're going to see is that theory is not going to play out even remotely. But I do think that like around this time, like late 80s, is like around the time that like being like the King of the Parrot Head starts to consume Jimmy.
So
right?
we're sitting in another situation where we're going to have 2 years between albums. Next, Hot Water comes out in
87.
And the last time this happened between Volcano and Coconut Telegraph, there actually was a major like stylistic break for him. And for the better, I would say.
Yeah, I liked Coconut Telegraph quite a bit, and you did too. I guess we'll see how this one goes.
We'll see how this one goes. I do think it's going to be hard. at this point for Jimmy to do better than he did here, because I don't know if Jimmy has the consistency to do that.
If Hot Water is good, I'm gonna go ballistic. I'm not gonna know how to handle that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I already know for a fact that one of the songs on that album might be his most sexist song.
Oh, good.
So far.
Right.
So
the world will make sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think we should put this episode to bed. I don't have anything more to say about this.
Floridays, we enjoyed you surprisingly.
Yeah. I still think I'm an advocate for buying a vinyl of this and then damaging the record so that it just skips straight over. You'll never work in this business again.
Yes, do that. Do that and listen to this podcast next week when we discuss Hot Water. But for now, I've been Kyle.
I've been Tom.
And this has been Dischoreography Wasting Away 2026. See you next week. Play us out, Jimmy.
Wasting away again, away again. Wasting away again, away again. Wasting away again, away again. And Margarita the Bell. It's my own damn fault.